Shivshankar Gold Medal for the best MSc Agri student in plant breeding and genetics, shares with another. Devika Pillai, recipient of EAS Gold Medal for General Merit from among the MFSC graduates in fish production and management, and Professor H.P. Shetty's Gold Medal for the best MFSC student from among fish production and management graduates, shares with another. Bimal Kinkar Chand, recipient of Professor H.P. Shetty Gold Medal for the best MFSC student from among industrial fishery technology graduates, shares with another.
ಸನ್ಮಾನ್ಯ ಕುಲಾಧಿಪತಿಗಳೇ, ಈಗ ಸಂಶೋಧನಾ ರಂಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಉತ್ತಮವಾದ ಸೇವೆ ಸಲ್ಲಿಸಿ ಪರಿಣಿತರಿಂದ ಶ್ರೀಮತಿ ನಾಗಮ್ಮ ದತ್ತಾತ್ರೇಯರಾವ್ ದೇಸಾಯಿ ಸಂಶೋಧನಾ ಪ್ರಶಸ್ತಿಗೆ ಅರ್ಹರು ಎಂದು ಆಯ್ಕೆಯಾಗಿರುವ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಜೆ.ವಿ. ನಾರಾಯಣಗೌಡರವರನ್ನು ಹಾಜರುಪಡಿಸಲು ಇಚ್ಛಿಸುತ್ತೇನೆ. ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಜೆ.ವಿ. ನಾರಾಯಣಗೌಡ ತೋಟಗಾರಿಕೆ ವಿಜ್ಞಾನಿ. ಇವರು ಕೋಲಾರ ಜಿಲ್ಲೆಯ ಗೌರಿಬಿದನೂರು ತಾಲೂಕಿನ ಜರಬಂಡೆಹಳ್ಳಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ದಿನಾಂಕ 20/5/1946ರಂದು ಪ್ರಗತಿಪರ ರೈತ ಕುಟುಂಬದಲ್ಲಿ ಜನಿಸಿದರು. ಇವರು 1969ರಲ್ಲಿ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು ಕೃಷಿ ವಿಶ್ವವಿದ್ಯಾನಿಲಯದಿಂದ BSc ಕೃಷಿ ಪದವಿಯನ್ನು, ನಂತರ ಅಲಹಾಬಾದ್ ವಿಶ್ವವಿದ್ಯಾನಿಲಯದಿಂದ ಪ್ರಥಮ ಶ್ರೇಣಿಯಲ್ಲಿ MSc ತೋಟಗಾರಿಕೆ ಪದವಿಯನ್ನು ಹಾಗೂ 1985ರಲ್ಲಿ ಕೃಷಿ ವಿಶ್ವವಿದ್ಯಾನಿಲಯದಿಂದ ತೋಟಗಾರಿಕೆ ಹೂವಿನ ಬೇಸಾಯದಲ್ಲಿನ ಪರಿಣತಿಗಾಗಿ PhD ಪದವಿಯನ್ನು ಪಡೆದು ಅಂದಿನಿಂದ ವಿಶೇಷವಾದ ಶೈಕ್ಷಣಿಕ ವೃತ್ತಿಯನ್ನು ಕೈಗೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇವರು UNDP ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದ ಅಡಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಅಮೆರಿಕ ಸಂಯುಕ್ತ ಸಂಸ್ಥಾನದ ಕಾರ್ನೆಲ್ ವಿಶ್ವವಿದ್ಯಾನಿಲಯದಲ್ಲಿ ವಾಣಿಜ್ಯ ಹೂವಿನ ಬೆಳೆ ಬೇಸಾಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಉನ್ನತ ತರಬೇತಿಯನ್ನು ಪಡೆದಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ನಾರಾಯಣಗೌಡರವರು 1969ರಲ್ಲಿ ಕೃಷಿ ವಿಶ್ವವಿದ್ಯಾನಿಲಯ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಿನ ಕೃಷಿ ಸಸ್ಯಶಾಸ್ತ್ರ ವಿಭಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಬೋಧಕ ಹುದ್ದೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ತಮ್ಮ ವೃತ್ತಿ ಜೀವನ ಆರಂಭಿಸಿ ರಾಜ್ಯ ತೋಟಗಾರಿಕೆ ಇಲಾಖೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸಹಾಯಕ ತೋಟಗಾರಿಕೆ ಅಧಿಕಾರಿಯಾಗಿ, ಕೃಷಿ ವಿಶ್ವವಿದ್ಯಾನಿಲಯ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಸಹಾಯಕ ತೋಟಗಾರಿಕೆ ತಜ್ಞರು ಹಾಗೂ 1980ರಿಂದ ಸಹ ಪ್ರಾಧ್ಯಾಪಕರಾಗಿ ಸೇವೆ ಸಲ್ಲಿಸುತ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ನಾರಾಯಣಗೌಡರವರು ಹಲವು ದೇಶಗಳಿಗೆ ಭೇಟಿ ನೀಡಿದ್ದು, ಅವುಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಅಮೆರಿಕ ಸಂಯುಕ್ತ ಸಂಸ್ಥಾನ, ಇಟಲಿ ಮತ್ತು ನೇಪಾಳ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿವೆ. ಇವರು ಸುಮಾರು 20 ರಾಷ್ಟ್ರೀಯ ಮತ್ತು ಅಂತಾರಾಷ್ಟ್ರೀಯ ಸಮ್ಮೇಳನಗಳು ಹಾಗೂ ವಿಚಾರಗೋಷ್ಠಿಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಭಾಗವಹಿಸಿ ತಮ್ಮ ಪ್ರಬಂಧಗಳನ್ನು ಮಂಡಿಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇವರು ತೋಟಗಾರಿಕೆ ವಿಭಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ 16 ಸ್ನಾತಕೋತ್ತರ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿಗೆ ಮಾಸ್ಟರ್ ಹಾಗೂ ಡಾಕ್ಟರೇಟ್ ಪದವಿಗಳಿಗಾಗಿ ಮಾರ್ಗದರ್ಶನ ನೀಡುವುದೇ ಅಲ್ಲದೆ ಸುಮಾರು 300 ವೈಜ್ಞಾನಿಕ ಹಾಗೂ ಜನಪ್ರಿಯ ಲೇಖನಗಳನ್ನು ಪ್ರಕಟಿಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವುಗಳಲ್ಲಿ 10 ತಾಂತ್ರಿಕ ಪತ್ರಿಕೆಗಳು ಮತ್ತು ಆಧಾರ ಗ್ರಂಥಗಳು ಸೇರಿವೆ. ಇವರು ಪ್ರಸ್ತುತದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂತಾರಾಷ್ಟ್ರೀಯ ಮಟ್ಟದ ಕ್ರಾಪ್ ರಿಸರ್ಚ್ ಪ್ರಕಟಣೆಯೇ ಅಲ್ಲದೆ ಮೈಸೂರು ತೋಟಗಾರಿಕೆ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಯ ಲಾಲ್ಬಾಗ್ ಮತ್ತು ತೋಟಗಾರ ತ್ರೈಮಾಸಿಕ ಪತ್ರಿಕೆಗಳ ಸಂಪಾದಕ ಮಂಡಳಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸೇವೆ ಸಲ್ಲಿಸುತ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ನಾರಾಯಣಗೌಡರವರು ಕತ್ತರಿಸಿದ ಹೂವುಗಳ ಜೀವನಾವಧಿಯನ್ನು ಹೆಚ್ಚಿಸುವ ವಿಷಯದಲ್ಲಿ ನಡೆಸಿದ ಸಂಶೋಧನೆಗಳ ಫಲವಾಗಿ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು ಹಾಗೂ ಸುತ್ತಮುತ್ತಲಿನ ಜಿಲ್ಲೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಉದ್ಯಮಕ್ಕೆ ಹೆಚ್ಚಿನ ಪ್ರೋತ್ಸಾಹ ದೊರೆತಿದೆ. ಅವರು ಚೈನಾ ಆಸ್ಟರ್ ಹಾಗೂ ಗ್ಲಾಡಿಯೋಲಾಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಉತ್ತಮವಾದ 1 ತಳಿಗಳನ್ನು ಗುರುತಿಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇದಲ್ಲದೆ ಸಂಕರಣ ಗುಲಾಬಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸಸ್ಯಾಭಿವೃದ್ಧಿಯ ಸುಲಭ ಮತ್ತು ತೀವ್ರತರವಾದ ತಾಂತ್ರಿಕತೆಗಳನ್ನು ಅಭಿವೃದ್ಧಿಗೊಳಿಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇವರು ಚೈನಾ ಆಸ್ಟರ್, ಗ್ಲಾಡಿಯೋಲಾ, ಸೇವಂತಿಗೆ, ಚೆಂಡು ಹೂವು ಹಾಗೂ ಸುಗಂಧರಾಜ ಹೂವುಗಳ ಹೆಚ್ಚಿನ ಇಳುವರಿಗಾಗಿ ಬಳಸಬೇಕಾದ ರಸಗೊಬ್ಬರಗಳ ಪ್ರಮಾಣವನ್ನು ನಿಗದಿಪಡಿಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅಲ್ಲದೆ ಉತ್ತಮ ಗುಣಮಟ್ಟದ ಹೂವುಗಳ ಅಧಿಕ ಉತ್ಪಾದನೆಗೆ ಬೇಕಾಗುವ ತಾಂತ್ರಿಕತೆಗಳನ್ನು ಅಭಿವೃದ್ಧಿಪಡಿಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ರೈತ ಸಮುದಾಯದ ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಅಭಿವೃದ್ಧಿಗಾಗಿ ಇವರು ನೀಡಿದ ಪ್ರಮುಖ ಸಂಶೋಧನಾ ಕೊಡುಗೆಗಳನ್ನು ಗುರುತಿಸಿ ಕೃಷಿ ವಿಶ್ವವಿದ್ಯಾನಿಲಯ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು ಇವರಿಗೆ 1991-92 ಸಾಲಿನ ನಾಗಮ್ಮ ದತ್ತಾತ್ರೇಯರಾವ್ ದೇಸಾಯಿ ಪ್ರಶಸ್ತಿಯನ್ನು ನೀಡಲು ಹರ್ಷಿಸುತ್ತದೆ.
Mr. Chancellor, Mr. Pro Vice Chancellor, Mr. Vice Chancellor, distinguished invitees, graduates of the year, ladies and gentlemen. I greatly appreciate the honor done by you in inviting me, who is not an agricultural scientist, to deliver the convocation address today. I believe that this invitation is in recognition of the emerging collaboration between the University of Agricultural Sciences and my own institution, Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, in the area of basic research in biology and biotechnology. A Center for Fundamental Research in Biological Sciences is being set up at the campus of this university by the Tata Institute to carry out research and teaching in areas covering a broad front of modern biology. Initially, the fields to be pursued would be molecular and cellular biology, developmental and neurobiology, and application of biotechnology to agricultural and other sciences. The work carried out at the proposed center would strengthen the base of research at the university in biochemistry, molecular biology, and genetics, which is necessary for successful applications of biotechnology. It would be desirable to introduce advanced molecular biology to the agricultural students through graduate courses. We expect that the members of the center will also contribute to the teaching of the university. The center, by its very nature, would not be equipped to undertake large-scale applications. The university here, on the other hand, with its large infrastructure, is in a strong position to pursue the biotechnological applications arising out of the research work at the center. We very much hope that this collaboration would be to the mutual benefit of both institutions. For today's address, I have therefore taken the theme of scientific research and Indian agriculture. Let me, however, first congratulate all the successful graduates of the year and hope that all of you will get the opportunity to serve the cause of agricultural development of your state and of the country. Ramesh Chandra Dutt, who was the second Indian to be inducted in the Indian Civil Service in 1871, published in July 1900 a book entitled Famines in India. He lists some 30 famines in India during the brief period from 1770 to the end of 19th century. The famine of 1899 to 1900 was described by Lord Curzon as the most widely extended and most terrible known in Indian history. It caused the death of 12.5 million people, according to the official estimate, which may have been 3 to 4 times less than the real figure. This tragic disaster was what persuaded Lord Curzon, as Viceroy of India, to set up in 1905 the Imperial Agricultural Institute at Pusa, which later shifted to Delhi. R.C. Dutt's book was one of the earliest serious studies of the Indian agricultural situation. He notes, and I quote, "If we honestly seek for the causes of recent famines in India, without prejudice or bias, we shall not seek in vain. The immediate cause of the famines in almost every instance is the failure of rains. And this cause will continue to operate until we have a more extensive system of irrigation than has yet been provided." He continues, "But the intensity and frequency of recent famines are greatly due to the resourceless condition and the chronic poverty of the cultivators, caused by the overassessment of the soil on which they depend for their living." In pre-independent India, during the period of 1900 to 1947, the agricultural situation did not deviate very much from the above description. It has been estimated that the annual growth rate of the food grain production during the period was of the order of only 0.1%. Naturally, the first priority of the independent India was food production. The first 5-year plan, beginning 1950-51, had agriculture as its main focus. While the total food grain production did increase from about 51 million tons in 50-51 to some 88 million tons in 64-65, which was regarded as a bumper crop year, the situation was unstable in the extreme. The very next year, in 65-66, the vagaries of monsoon caused the production to plummet down by some 10 million tons. Even in the bumper year of 64-65, India imported some 6.3 million tons of food. Even then, undernourishment was widespread. We were known abroad by our begging bowl image. Most of the increase of agricultural production in this period was due to increase in the area which was brought under cultivation and irrigation. One should also note that a number of agricultural universities and colleges were set up in this period. keeping in mind the need to develop links between the rural development and education. Education Commission, under the chairmanship of Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, recommended in 1949 the establishment of rural universities to meet educational, research, and extension requirements of the rural areas. The joint Indo-American teams recommended setting up institutions on the pattern of the land-grant colleges in US. Good progress was also made in developing infrastructure for getting the farmer to acquire advanced agricultural technology from agricultural universities and institutions. All this was going to play its useful role in the next phase of Indian agriculture, known as Green Revolution. I now come to Green Revolution. The Green Revolution in Indian agriculture is a shining example of the contribution which science can make to agriculture. It is dated from the successful wheat harvest of 67-68, resulting from the introduction of new dwarf wheat varieties. While the new dwarf wheat varieties were sown over only 18% of the land under wheat cultivation, they accounted for 40% of total wheat production of India during that year. These dwarf wheat varieties were obtained by crossing Japanese and Mexican varieties at the International Center for Maize and Wheat Improvement in Mexico by Norman Borlaug. They are high-yielding, more disease-resistant, and they withstand wind and rain impact better. They can also absorb more fertilizer without becoming too heavy at the top. Further, about as much as half the weight of the plant goes into production of grains, leading to a higher yield for any given input level of fertilizer. Their adaptation to Indian conditions and taste, for example, conversion of Mexican red dwarf wheat variety Sonora 64 to Indian white variety Sharbati Sonora, was a signal achievement of Indian scientists. Similar genetic advances on rice and other crops have also had enormous impact. As a result of the Green Revolution, food grain production increased from a pre-Green Revolution figure of 88 million tons in 64-65 to 173 million tons by 1989-90. This increase has been sustained and has been accompanied by greater productivity, that is, production per unit area, from a mere 408 kilogram per hectare in 1950-51 to 1400 kilogram per hectare 1990-91, which is something like 3.5 times. Apart from the introduction of new genetic varieties, there were other important factors leading to the Green Revolution. There was the enormous growth in the production of needed inputs from the chemical industry, such as fertilizers and pesticides. Ammonia production rose from a meager 11,000 tons per year in 1950 to 1,500,000 tons per year in 1975. Pesticide production rose from 14,000 tons in 66 to 66,000 tons in 85-86. Water and irrigation, of course, play a crucial role in agriculture. In India, where we have abundant sunlight but no rains during the summer season, makes irrigation even more important. Enormous strides were taken to bring irrigation to larger areas. In the first 3 decades after independence, the area under irrigation increased from 20 million hectares to about 45 million hectares as a result of large number of irrigation projects. Improved agricultural farm tools and the use of agricultural machinery, such as tractors, also made their appearance on the scene. These inputs were reinforced by enlightened public policies on agriculture and pricing. A decisive role in transferring the advanced agricultural technology, leading to Green Revolution, to the farmer was taken by agricultural research institutes, agricultural universities and colleges, and various extension services. The role of demonstration farms was important in getting the new grain varieties accepted by the farmer. The Indian farmer demonstrated, contrary to his earlier image, that he can be receptive to changes, provided he is convinced of their usefulness to him. At long last, country became self-sufficient in food grains, resulting in the generation of self-confidence as a nation. Now, looking to the coming decade of the 90s, however, there are reasons to be apprehensive. Most of the gains of the agricultural food production, and it has been increasing at the overall growth rate of 2.6% during 67 to 87 period, are wiped out by the population growth, which is presently around 2.2% per annum. We are barely managing to keep ahead. We are running as fast as we can to stay in the same place, like Alice in the Looking Glass land. We have not used the period of Green Revolution to bring down the population growth, unlike China, where it is estimated to be presently 1.2% with their emphasis on one-child family. Nutritionally, our calorie intake per capita per day is below the Asian average. Drought problems are still very much with us. In the year 2000 AD, we would need a food production of about 240 to 330 million tons per year. Annual cereal production has to increase from 7 million tons as against 3.5 million tons average of the last decade, which is roughly the figure has to be doubled. Can this be achieved? There are large gaps between the national average yield and what can be achieved under ideal conditions on national demonstration plots. For example, a paddy average of 20.6 versus 48.4 quintals per hectare. A wheat average of 18.7 versus 35.5 quintals per hectare. Indian cereal production per hectare is only 1700 kilogram as compared to figure of 2600 kilogram figure for Asia. Even within India, there are wide disparities, such as Punjab having a food grain productivity of 3200 kilogram per hectare versus the national average of 1250 kilogram per hectare. Clearly, there is unused potential which can be exploited. This potential, however, has to be utilized without causing deterioration or loss of basic agricultural resources. We have to safeguard the soil against erosion and desertification, water and air against pollution from fertilizers and agrochemicals, prevent deforestation leading to the loss of soil and flooding. We have to make sure that we do not disturb natural ecological balances which may lead to aggravated pest problems. Biodiversity has to be preserved as a resource for possible future wonder crops and other useful contributions to humanity. All this has to be done in such a way that it leads to more rural occupation of jobs and can be implemented over land holdings whose size is small on the average. In short, agricultural growth has to be sustainable. It has to be ecologically friendly. I recently found a quote from, I was reading Al-Biruni's Indica. Al-Biruni, a universal genius who flourished about 1,000 years ago, had already grasped the fundamentals of these constraints. In his account of India, Tarikhul Hind, written in 11th century, he noticed the life of the world depends upon sowing and procreating. Both processes increase in the course of time, and this increase is unlimited, while the world is limited. I think this puts in a nutshell the problem. As India already has 47% of its land under agriculture, it's only through increased productivity that we can hope to achieve our goals. This would require getting higher yields per crop, and if possible, to have more crops per year on the same plot of land. Science and technology have a great role to play in this. Biotechnology offers great promise for taking the green revolution to a new phase of higher agricultural productivity. The yield can be increased if the efficiency factor associated with the photosynthesis by plants can be improved. With the present dwarf grain varieties, it is more efficient to have an accelerated initial growth of the plant, providing it with large leaf cover for better photosynthesis. Conventional breeding, followed by required seed production, takes about 10 years as it did for rice IR36. Plant tissue method offers a method of acceleration of plant breeding. Using cell and tissue culture, together with techniques of hybridization, one can these days design crops which have the required capabilities for their effective use. We could think of crops which would reclaim bad soils by being tolerant of excessive salinity or alkalinity. One could select crops which are not affected as much by drought conditions. One could select plants for their resistance to diseases. Genetic engineering through recombinant DNA technology gives us unlimited possibilities to design new variations on crops which would have built-in resistance to diseases, pests and herbicides. Crops could be improved for their nutritional quality. Biological nitrogen fixation is another important area where we utilize the ability of microorganisms such as free-living blue-green algae or rhizobium in symbiosis with legumes to synthesize ammonia from atmospheric nitrogen through their metabolism. This will greatly help with the problem of larger and larger inputs which would be needed from the chemical fertilizer industry. The only source of water for agriculture is from rainfall, except for a very small amount from glacial melting. As emphasized in Krashi Prashra, an Indian text on agriculture dating from 950 to 1100 AD, Vrashti Mool Krashihi Sarv Vrashti Moolam Che Jivanam Tasmat Adav Pratnene Vrashti Janam Samacharetu. All agriculture has rainfall as its root. Life too has rainfall as its source. Therefore, at the outset, acquire knowledge of rainfall very carefully. Unfortunately, even at the present, the science of meteorology and our understanding of the relevant coupled nonlinear dynamics is not sufficiently advanced to make monsoon forecasts on the basis of fundamental science. The relevant equations have a chaotic behavior, but an approach based on correlation studies of a large number of related phenomena and advanced by Indian Met Department seems to offer promise. This approach, if established, would be a great help in our agricultural planning. Since rainfall is the only source and it is not available throughout the year, the basic problem in water management is water storage and avoidance of unnecessary losses. Storage may be in large reservoirs, as in river valley projects, or by creating many small reservoirs, as in watershed management schemes. One has to control losses from seepage and evaporation and through more efficient irrigation systems. For example, drip irrigation. Science can also be used to locate and explore further groundwater potential of the country. Inputs of energy for agriculture will also be needed on a large scale for irrigation and fertilizer, production and other agro needs. The devising of appropriate farming systems for different areas of the country, taking into account local factors of soil, rainfall, power and other inputs, economics, would also require adequate thought. So many considerations have to match with each other that a total systems approach is desirable for achieving increased productivity. A large database on Indian agriculture is needed, some of it referring to changing conditions as well for public policy decisions. Here, remote sensing can be of great use. It can give timely information on crop acreage, yield estimates on pests, crop diseases, drought and flood assessments, forest and wasteland management, and many other relevant aspects. All that science can do for agriculture is clearly of great importance, but unless these scientific results reach the farmer, they would not result in national development. A strong coupling via an extension service between laboratories and model farms of the research institutions, agricultural colleges and universities is a must. The experience of USA, where extension services began in 1914, brings out its importance. Productivity during this period has increased from an initial 1.6 to 1.9 tons of corn per hectare to more than 6 tons of corn per hectare at present. Our own experience is also very positive. I have not touched upon possible impact which these developments in agricultural technology would have on our civilization and culture. These, however, are likely to be profound. Let me give an example. According to Lynn White Jr., a historian of medieval technology, the explanation of the shift of center of gravity from south to north in Europe around the reign of Charlemagne was due to agricultural revolution of early Middle Ages. The components of this revolution were the heavy plough, the open fields, the modern harness, and the 3-yearly crop rotation. Let me quote White now on the far-reaching transformation produced by these developments. The agricultural revolution of the early Middle Ages was limited to the northern plains where the heavy plough was appropriate to the rich soils, where the summer rains permitted large spring planting, and where the oats of the summer crop supported the horses to pull the heavy plough. It was on those plains that the distinctive features both of the late medieval and modern worlds developed. The increased returns from the labor of the northern peasant raised his standard of living and consequently his ability to buy manufactured goods. It provided surplus food, which from the 10th century on permitted rapid urbanization. In the new cities, there arose a class of skilled artisans and merchants, the burghers, who speedily got control of their communities and created a novel and characteristic way of life, democratic capitalism. And in this environment germinated the dominant feature of the modern world, power technology. We are now entering the post-Green Revolution period of Indian agriculture. The challenges are great, and our agricultural universities have great responsibilities and a leading role to play. Those of you who are graduating today are going out equipped with very useful and important training. The nation looks forward to you for solving its agricultural problems in this critical period, and I very much hope that you will be successful in it. On that success depends our future. I wish you a bright, happy, and creative future. Thank you.
I dissolve the convocation.